Okay, let's talk about authentication and authorization. They are often confused, but they are actually quite different. Authentication is all about proving who you are, like logging in with your username and password or using a fingerprint scanner. It's that initial verification process. Authorization, on the other hand, determines what you can do once you've been verified. Think of it as permissions. An admin account might be authenticated but only have access to certain features and data. So, authentication confirms your identity, while authorization controls your access levels. Okay, let's talk about authentication. It's a really important concept in application security. Essentially, authentication is all about confirming who someone actually is. It's like proving you have the right ID to get into a club. Without that verification, anyone could pretend to be someone else. This helps build trust with users and, more importantly, it's vital for protecting sensitive information and ensuring the security of our systems. Authentication doesn't just prevent bad actors from entering, it's also key for meeting legal requirements when dealing with personal data. Okay, let's talk about how we actually verify who someone is when they log in. The most common way is still password-based authentication. You enter your username and password. But it's not the only option. We also have multi-factor authentication, which adds an extra layer of security by requiring something more than just a password, like a code sent to your phone. Social logins, using accounts from services like Google or Facebook, are also pretty popular now. API keys are important for applications that need to talk to other systems securely, and biometric methods like fingerprint scanning are becoming increasingly common too. Thinking about the pros and cons of each method is really important when designing a secure application. Okay, let's talk about multi-factor authentication, or MFA. Basically, it's a fantastic way to make your online accounts much harder for hackers to break into. Instead of just needing your password, you have to prove who you are using something else, like an app on your phone, a code sent to your email, or even just scanning your fingerprint. It's like adding extra locks to your digital door really boosts the security. Okay, let's talk about two-factor authentication. Think of it as adding a really strong lock to your digital door in addition to your regular key or password. First, you enter your username and password just like always. Then, the system asks for something else to prove it's really you. This something else is the second factor. There are several ways this can work: using an app on your phone that generates time-based codes, receiving a text message with a code, or even using your fingerprint. Once you enter the code from that second factor, it confirms everything matches and lets you in. It's a really effective way to protect against password breaches. Okay, let's talk about biometric authentication, a really interesting topic for security interviews. Basically, it's all about using your body to prove who you are instead of relying on things like passwords. Think fingerprint scanners, facial recognition, even voice identification. These methods are much harder to steal or guess because they're unique to ***. It's more secure and often much easier for users than remembering a complex password. Okay, so let's talk about how tokens are used for authentication. Instead of constantly asking for usernames and passwords, which can be a hassle and sometimes insecure, we use tokens. Think of it like a digital key that proves you've logged in. When you log in successfully, the server gives you this token, and you can use it to access different parts of the system without needing to re-enter your password every single time. It's a much smoother experience. There are different types of tokens, like JWT, which are very popular, and OAuth 2.0 tokens that help apps securely access resources on behalf of the user. Okay, let's talk about session-based authentication. Think of it like a digital handshake between you and the website. When you log in, the site verifies your credentials, your username and password. If everything checks out, the server creates a secret key, which we call a session ID. This ID is sent back to the browser as a cookie, kind of like a little ticket. Every time you make a new request, like looking at a different page or adding an item to your cart, that ticket gets sent along with it. The website then uses this ticket to find all the information about **** in its records, so it knows who you are and what you're allowed to do. It's pretty straightforward and really common for securing websites today. Okay, let's talk about JWT. They're essentially a digital passport for your users, a way to securely send information between systems. A JWT is made up of three parts: a header, a payload, and a signature. The header tells the system how it was signed, the payload contains user data like their name or role, and the signature ensures that no one has messed with the token. Because they're stateless, JWT are super useful in modern applications where servers don't need to keep track of individual sessions. Okay, let's dive into OAuth 2.0. It's a really clever solution to some common problems we see with accessing other services online. Basically, think about when you connect your Google account to an app. You don't give that app your asterisk password, right? That's the core idea behind OAuth 2.0. Traditionally, apps needed your username and password directly, which was a huge security risk. It also meant lots of separate accounts to manage. OAuth 2.0 lets another application access resources on your behalf, like reading emails or using maps without you ever sharing your actual login details. It's all about delegation and giving the app permission to access **** securely. Okay, let's talk about OpenID Connect. It's a really clever addition to the world of authorization, and it leverages OAuth 2.0 in a fantastic way. OAuth 2.0 handles what resources you're accessing, who gets to use your stuff. But what about who is actually doing the accessing? That's where OpenID Connect comes in. It essentially adds an identity layer on top of OAuth 2.0, allowing us to securely identify users without needing them to create new accounts or share passwords. The core idea is using an ID token, a digitally signed JSON document, to verify the user's identity and retrieve extra information about them via a user info endpoint. It's all about building upon what OAuth 2.0 already does really well. Okay, let's talk about access tokens. Essentially, they're like temporary keys that websites and apps use to prove who you are and what you're allowed to do. When you log in somewhere, the website or app doesn't remember your password forever. It issues an access token. This token is a short-lived credential that gives the app permission to access specific things on your account, like your profile information or your messages. Most of these tokens are actually JSON web tokens, which are a secure way to send information back and forth. They expire pretty quickly too, usually within an hour or so, making them much safer than keeping track of passwords for long periods. Okay, let's talk refresh tokens. They're like having a backup key for your online accounts. When you log in, the server gives you both an access token, which is used to do things right away, but has a limited lifespan, and a refresh token. The refresh token lets you get a new access token later on without ever needing to type in your password again. It's super useful for apps like websites or mobile apps where you don't constantly need to re-authenticate. Think of it as a way to keep things running smoothly behind the scenes, and they are really important to store securely. Okay, let's talk about single sign-on, or SSO for short. Basically, it's a really convenient system that lets you log into multiple applications using just one set of login details. Imagine being able to access your email, online banking, and a work portal all with the same username and password. It makes things much smoother for users, reduces the hassle of remembering dozens of different passwords, and can actually improve security by centralizing how people are authenticated. Popular SSO protocols include SAML, OAuth 2.0, and OpenID Connect. Do you have any questions about this? Okay, so let's talk about single sign-on, or SSO. Essentially, it's like having one master key that unlocks access to multiple applications. Think of logging into your company email, CRM, and project management tools all with the same set of credentials. This dramatically improves the user experience because users don't have to remember dozens of different passwords, which we know can be a huge pain. It streamlines the login process, saving them time and frustration. But it's not just about convenience. SSO also boosts security. By centralizing authentication, you create a stronger security posture. Users aren't using weak passwords across multiple services, reducing the risk of compromise. And often, SSO platforms integrate smoothly with MFA, adding an extra layer of protection to keep things secure. Okay, let's talk about SSO single sign-on. It's a really handy feature that lets you log in once and access multiple apps, but it also comes with some significant risks if not implemented correctly. The biggest one is often a compromised token. If an attacker gets hold of your SSO token, they can instantly bypass security for all the applications connected to the SSO system. Another concern is session hijacking, basically someone stealing your active login session and pretending to be you. Then there's the potential for privilege escalation if permissions aren't carefully managed within the SSO setup, meaning users might end up with more access than they should have. And finally, because it relies on a central identity provider, if the provider is breached, everything connected to it is vulnerable. Fortunately, things like multi-factor authentication and regular security checks can help minimize these risks. Okay, let's talk about identity providers, or IDPs. Basically, they're like a trusted middleman for verifying who you are online. Instead of every website and app needing to manage its own user accounts, an IDP does that for them. You initially set up your account with the IDP, maybe it's Google, Facebook, or something more specialized. Then, when you try to log into a service that uses that IDP, you're redirected back there. The IDP checks if you're who you say you are, and then issues a token confirming your identity. This makes things much simpler for users. They only have to remember one set of credentials. And it also provides better security by leveraging the established security practices of these well-known providers. Okay, let's talk about service providers. Simply put, an SB is any application that needs to know for sure who's logging in, like your online banking portal or social media platform. They're the ones asking, is this person really who they say they are? The SB doesn't actually verify the identity, it just asks for proof. It then sends that proof, like a username and password, to an identity provider to get it checked out. Essentially, they act as the middleman in the authentication process. So, let's dive into federated identity management. It's all about making the login process smoother for users and more secure overall. The idea is that you don't have to create a whole new account every time you want to use another service. Instead, you log in once with an identity provider you already trust, like Google or Microsoft, and then those other apps can vouch for your identity. It's beneficial because it simplifies things for the user, makes security better by reducing password complexity, and helps IT teams manage identities more efficiently. Okay, let's talk about LDAP authentication. Basically, it's a standard way to access and manage user information stored in something called a directory server. Instead of keeping all your usernames and passwords in one giant database, which can be tricky to maintain and secure, LDAP distributes that information across multiple servers. When you log in, your system asks an LDAP server if those credentials are correct. It's like having a central hub for user data, making things much easier to manage, especially as your organization grows. Okay, let's talk about Kerberos. It's a really clever system for securing network access. Imagine you need to get into building. Kerberos is like a sophisticated key exchange process. There are three main actors involved: the client, who's trying to access something; the server, which is what they are accessing; and the KDC, which acts as the gatekeeper, issuing these temporary credentials called tickets. The client asks the KDC for a ticket, essentially proving its identity, and the KDC checks that identity. If it's valid, it hands out a ticket granting ticket TGT. Then, when the client wants to access a specific service, like a database, it requests a service ticket from the KDC specifically for the resource. The server then verifies this ticket and grants access. Crucially, Kerberos uses secret keys to encrypt these tickets so they are protected along the way. It's all about minimizing password usage and providing secure authentication. Let's talk about basic authentication. It's actually pretty straightforward, but that simplicity comes with some serious drawbacks. Basically, when you use basic authentication, you type in your username and password directly into the URL or request header. The server checks those credentials against its database to see if they match. It's quick and easy for simple setups, but here's the big problem. It sends your username and password over the internet in plain text. That means anyone who intercepts the network traffic can easily steal your login information. For this reason, basic authentication is strongly discouraged. There are much more secure ways to verify a user's identity. Okay, let's talk about digest authentication, a really important concept in web security. It's essentially a way to protect access to resources without needing full SSL/TLS encryption, which can be tricky to set up. The core idea is that the client and server share a secret key, and they both independently calculate a digest value based on that key and the username. If those digest values match, you've successfully authenticated. It uses HMAC/SHA for hashing, making it relatively secure. Remember that while it doesn't require *SSL/TLS, always use HTTPS when possible for extra protection. Okay, let's talk about how we secure data in authentication, specifically the difference between symmetric and asymmetric encryption. Symmetric encryption is like using a single lock and key that everyone who needs to send or receive messages has. It's super fast but requires a really secure way to share that key. Asymmetric encryption uses a pair of keys, a public one you can give out freely and a private one you keep strictly secret. The public key is used to encrypt data, proving ownership, and only the holder of the corresponding private key can unlock it. So, while symmetric is quick, asymmetric provides more secure key management for authentication. Okay, so let's talk about passwords. Plain text passwords are a huge security risk. If someone gets access to your database, they get everyone's logins. That's where password hashing comes in. It's like taking your user's password and running it through a super complicated math problem that turns it into something completely different looking but still representing the same original password. It's not encryption though, you can't reverse this process. A crucial part of this is adding a salt, which is basically a random string we add to each password before hashing. This makes rainbow tables, where hackers pre-compute hashes for common passwords, much less effective. Also, increasing the number of iterations means the algorithm runs more times, making it harder and slower for attackers to crack. Okay, let's talk about how we actually store those passwords we type in. Storing them as plain text would be disastrous, right? So, instead, we use a process called hashing. Hashing takes your password and transforms it into a seemingly random string of characters like a digital fingerprint. This makes it incredibly difficult for someone to figure out the original password even if they manage to steal the database. Several algorithms exist, but older ones like MD5 and SH-1 are no longer considered secure due to vulnerabilities. We generally prefer stronger options like SH-256 or SH-512, but specifically designed algorithms like bcrypt are often a better choice because they include salting, which adds an extra layer of protection. Think of it as adding a unique key that prevents attacks even if the hashing algorithm itself is compromised. Essentially, we want to use robust algorithms and always salt our passwords. Okay, let's talk about salts and how they play a vital role in securing passwords. Essentially, when we hash a password, it's transformed into an unreadable string. But if everyone uses the same hashing algorithm, it creates a weakness called rainbow tables. These are pre-computed tables of hashes for common passwords. Hackers can just look them up. To combat this, we use salts. A salt is like a random piece of data added to each password before it's hashed. This means that even if two people have the same password, their individual hashes will be completely different, rendering rainbow tables ineffective and making dictionary attacks much harder. Okay, let's talk about password security. Both salting and peppering are techniques to make cracking passwords much harder. Salting is like adding a unique random string to each user's password before hashing. It creates a fingerprint that prevents rainbow table attacks. Peppering takes this a step further by actually encrypting the salt itself before hashing. So, you're essentially double encrypting your password and its unique identifier. This adds an extra layer of protection because if someone steals the encryption key, they also get the salt. It's all about making it incredibly difficult for attackers to figure out the original passwords. Okay, let's talk about role-based access control, or RBAC. It's a really important concept when thinking about how we secure systems. Basically, instead of giving individual users direct access rights like can read this file, can edit this database, we create groups called roles. Think of it like job titles: administrator, editor, or viewer. Then, we assign permissions to the specific actions someone can take to those roles. Finally, we add users ** those roles. So, if a user is in the editor role, they automatically get all the permissions associated with that role. It's a really scalable and maintainable way to manage access because changes only need to be made at the role level, not individually for each user. Does that make sense? Let's talk about RBAC, attribute-based access control. It's a really powerful way of managing who gets to do what with specific resources. Unlike simpler systems that just check for roles, RBAC looks * all * the details. We're talking about things like the user's job title, where they are located, or even the type of device they're using alongside information about the resource itself and the action being requested. It's essentially a data-driven approach to security, allowing for much finer control than traditional role-based methods. Okay, let's talk about policy-based access control, or PBAC. It's a really important concept when you're thinking about security. Instead of creating a long list of do nots like user X can't do Y, PBAC focuses on defining * policies *. Think of these policies as high-level rules that say something like users in the sales team should be able to view customer data. It's much more declarative. It's about describing what you want, not how to get there. PBAC uses policy engines which evaluate these policies against each access request in real time, taking into account things like who's requesting, what they need, and where they are. This approach makes security easier to manage, audit, and adapt to changing needs. Really powerful stuff. Okay, let's talk about a really crucial concept in security, the principle of least privilege. Basically, it means giving people only the exact access they need to do their job. Think of it like this: you wouldn't give someone who just needs to sell ice cream access to the bank vault. Limiting privileges significantly reduces risk if something goes wrong, and it makes systems much more secure overall. Okay, let's dive into how we handle authentication for API. First off, API keys are a straightforward option, easy to implement but not the most secure, particularly if you're using them internally or for low-risk applications. Then there's OAuth 2.0, which is really popular for when third parties need access to user data without users having to share their passwords directly. JWT's JSON Web Tokens are super handy in microservices because they're compact and don't require a central server to manage sessions. And of course, always remember that basic authentication using HTTP basic is generally less secure if you aren't using HTTPS. Finally, adding multi-factor authentication significantly boosts your security posture by requiring more than just a username and password. Okay, let's talk about the client credentials flow in OAuth. It's a really straightforward approach. Basically, your application just gives its ID and secret to the authorization server. Think of it like presenting your employee badge to get into a building. The server checks that badge is valid, and if it is, they give you access. This is great when you don't need a user actively logged in or participating, like for internal services or automated processes. Okay, let's talk about the implicit flow in OAuth 2.0. It's a pretty straightforward approach to getting access tokens, but it comes with some significant drawbacks. Essentially, the client, like your web app, gets the token directly from the authorization server without requiring you to even log in or enter your credentials. The token is then passed along immediately to the resource server for subsequent requests. However, this direct exposure of the token in a browser's URL makes it vulnerable to attacks. Plus, it's really tricky to revoke access if something goes wrong. For native apps and mobile devices, it's even harder to handle securely. That's why the authorization code grant flow is generally considered a much better and safe alternative. Okay, so let's talk about PKCE. It's a vital addition to the OAuth 2.0 flow, especially when you have mobile apps or native clients involved. The core problem it solves is authorization code interception, basically someone trying to steal your client credentials by intercepting the authorization code. PKCE works by using something called a code verifier, which is unique to each app, and a code challenge. The app generates these, sends the challenge to the server, and then exchanges the code for an access token. But the key here is that the *verifier* never leaves the app, only the challenge does. This makes it incredibly difficult for attackers to intercept and use your credentials. Okay, let's talk about how we protect passwords. It's absolutely crucial. We never want to store passwords in plain text in our databases because that's a huge security risk. Instead of doing that, we use two main techniques, salting and hashing. Salting is like adding a random secret ingredient to a unique string to each password before we hash it. This makes sure that even if two people have the same password, their hashes will be completely different. Then, we use hashing to transform that salted password into a fixed length string, basically turning it into something really hard to guess. We want to use strong, modern algorithms like Bcrypt or Authentication for this because they are designed to slow down attackers trying to brute force the passwords. It's important to store the salt alongside the hash in the database and regularly review our security measures. Let's talk about account lockout. It's a really important security measure that helps protect your systems from someone trying to guess passwords repeatedly. Think of it like a temporary roadblock for attackers attempting brute force attacks. They get frustrated and give up. We use it to slow down those attempts, prevent our servers from being overwhelmed, and add an extra layer of protection, even if a user's password isn't super strong. The settings can be customized to balance security with making sure legitimate users aren't locked out for too long. Okay, let's talk about brute force attacks. They're a really common threat to authentication systems. Basically, attackers try every possible combination of usernames and passwords until they get lucky. To combat this, we use things like rate limiting, which prevents someone from trying too many login attempts in a short period. Then there's account lockout. If someone makes a bunch of incorrect tries, their account gets temporarily blocked. Catches are super helpful because they make it really hard for bots to automate these attacks. And of course, multi-factor authentication adds an extra layer of security by requiring more than just a password. Okay, let's talk about cross-site request forgery, or CSRF. It's a really clever attack that plays on how websites handle authentication. Think of it like this: you log into your bank online and then you visit a random website. That website might unknowingly trigger a request to transfer money from your * account, all without you even realizing it. CSRF exploits the fact that when you're logged into one site, your browser automatically sends cookies and session tokens with requests to that same site. An attacker can craft a malicious link or script that uses this existing trust to trick your browser into making unauthorized changes on your behalf. So authentication is about proving *Q*, while CSRF bypasses that entirely by exploiting the browser's behavior. Okay, let's dive into open authorization delegation. It's a clever way of handling authentication that moves beyond simple logins. Instead of relying on users directly, we trust an identity provider, someone like Okta or Google Identity, to vouch for what they can access. They use standard HTTP headers, particularly the authorization header, to define who has permission and what they are allowed to do. Essentially, a service delegates its authorization decisions to this trusted IDP. This is super helpful because it means you don't have to constantly update your API with every new user or service. The IDP manages those permissions centrally. Okay, so let's talk about device fingerprinting. It's a really cool method for adding an extra layer of security when you're logging in. Basically, every computer and phone has unique characteristics, like the version of your browser, what operating system you're running, and even what fonts are installed on your machine. A device fingerprinting service collects all these details and creates a kind of digital ID for your device. When you log in, it compares this new fingerprint to a database of existing ones. If it finds a match or something very similar, it knows that you're likely using the same device you usually do. It's not perfect though, people can change their settings, so it's just one part of a comprehensive security plan. Let's talk about how to build a rock-solid authentication system. The most important thing is MFA. Think of it as adding extra locks to your door. Don't let people just walk in with just a key. Also, strong password policies are crucial. We want users creating passwords that are really tough to crack. Rate limiting helps protect against attackers trying to guess passwords repeatedly, and account lockouts are a good deterrent too. And of course, when it comes to storing passwords, we never want to keep them in plain sight. Hashing is essential. Okay, let's talk about ACL and RBAC. Both are ways to control who gets access to things, but they work in different ways. Think of an ACL like a personalized guest list for each file or database. You explicitly grant permissions to specific users on each resource. It's great for simple systems, but as your organization grows, managing all those individual lists becomes really complicated. RBAC is a more scalable approach. Instead of focusing on individual users, it groups people into roles like manager or editor. You then assign permissions to the roles and users are assigned to those roles. This makes it much easier to manage access across a larger organization because you're managing groups instead of individuals. Okay, let's talk about how we check our work specifically when it comes to authentication and authorization. Think of auditing as creating a detailed record of every time someone tries to log in or access something they shouldn't. We want to see who tried, when and what they were trying to do. It's important to track both successful logins and any attempts at fail that can often reveal suspicious activity. We also need to monitor what users are actually doing once they're in the system. Are they accessing the resources they are supposed to? And it's not just about catching problems. Good auditing helps us proactively spot potential weaknesses in our security. Okay, let's talk about some of the most common weaknesses you might encounter in authentication systems. First up are weak passwords. It's shocking how often users default to simple, easily guessable passwords like password 123. Always enforce strong password policies. Then there's brute force attacks, where attackers just keep guessing until they get lucky. Rate limiting and account lockouts help prevent this. Next, we have session management problems. If sessions aren't handled securely, an attacker can steal a user's login information. Using unpredictable ID and setting expiration times are key here. Don't forget about XSS attacks that can steal credentials or bypass authentication entirely. Proper input sanitization is vital. Finally, credential stuffing, where attackers use stolen passwords from other breaches to try logging in. Encouraging users to utilize strong, unique passwords across multiple services significantly reduces this risk. Okay, so let's talk about building a secure authentication system for something that's spread out across multiple services, a distributed application. The first thing we need to think about is whether it makes more sense to have one central place handling authentication or if each service should handle its own. There are pros and cons to both approaches, and the best one will depend on your specific needs. Next, let's consider what kind of tokens we're using. JWT are a popular choice because they're stateless, making them easier to scale, but OAuth 2.0 and OpenID Connect can be useful if you need to delegate authentication authority. And speaking of security, always implement multi-factor authentication. It adds an extra layer of protection that significantly reduces the risk of unauthorized access. Finally, when storing user credentials, it's absolutely essential to hash your passwords using a strong salt. Never store them in plain text. Let's look at a simplified example of how you might generate and verify JWT. Thank you for watching.